Hey, welcome to a new video. The movie kicks off on a cruise ship where two men are making fun of a dog for eating their leftover food. An elderly wise man sees this and rescues the dog from these mean individuals. A crew member thanks him for saving the dog. The old man then shares his annoyance, reflecting on how people often treat each other poorly and keep finding new ways to cause pain. In contrast, dogs show constant loyalty and love to their owners. They give love freely, providing comfort and friendship whether times are good or bad. He begins to share a story about his dad, Volkov, who was a Soviet military pilot in World War II, and his dog, Prince. The old man remembers how Prince once saved his dad from a German spy. We find out that VOV was really good at the Military Air Force Academy, finishing top of his class in 1939. Soon after, he was promoted to the role of commander. Are you new to this channel? Make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. And before we continue, also like the video. One evening, his general came to his house and gave him a strong warning about his relationship with the general's daughter. He told Vyov that he would send him to jail if he didn't stop seeing her. Despite the threat, Volkov stood his ground, ready to face whatever came next. He wouldn't stop loving her. Unfortunately, the next morning, Volkov was wrongly accused of misbehavior and was locked up for 2 years. After he got out, he was sent to work as a ranger in a forest. One day, while on duty, he saved a puppy from 2 wolves and named him Prince, who soon became his closest friend. In a flashback, we see how quickly Volkov and Prince became good friends. Once, Volkov was caught off guard by a German spy with a knife. Just when things looked bad, Prince jumped in, bit the spy, and helped his master capture him. This act of bravery earned VOV a lot of respect in the Red Army. After that, Vyov and Prince grew even closer, sharing meals, rest, and playtime. When the Second World War began, he was called up to serve in the military, taking his dog with him to fight against the German forces. But because he was injured, he was assigned to help the camp's medical team instead. One day, while talking to a doctor, a German bomber attacked their camp. Despite the destruction, he managed to get out safely. He quickly helped injured soldiers and got them onto trucks. But amid the chaos, he had to find safety under one of the trucks. Under the vehicle, Vyov quickly shoots at the enemy. His aim is impressively accurate, even though he hasn't been in combat for a while. He managed to take down German spies by himself, but then a missile hits the truck. This causes him to lose consciousness. When he opens his eyes again, he feels his life fading away. Luckily, Prince runs to get help from the medical vehicle. At first, the doctors don't recognize the dog, but a nurse named Nina follows him. It turns out that Nina is Volkov's fiancée. Worried, Nina follows Prince to the battlefield and finds Volkov. Thanks to their faithful dog, Volkov's life is saved once more. Unfortunately, he has suffered serious injuries to his leg. Once he is on the medical vehicle, the doctors have to amputate his leg to save his life. Meanwhile, the soldiers are impressed by Prince's bravery and his loyalty to his master. VOV is moved to the state hospital where Nina is employed. Over time, his health gets better, but he needs crutches to walk. One night, Prince feels that something is wrong in the area and decides to check it out. Trusting his partner's instincts, Volkov goes with him to a nearby house. There, they find a dead body. Suddenly, the killer attacks VOV from the shadows. Thankfully, Prince jumps in to protect his master once more, fiercely attacking the murderer. At the same time, a patrolling army unit hears the noise and comes to the scene. The soldiers are once again impressed by Vyov and his courageous dog for their responsible actions. Meanwhile, the Soviet Union's army general is having a tough time with the powerful German tanks. Trouble is brewing for the country again, which leads the general to call VOV and his loyal dog Prince back into service. Volkov is disappointed when he finds out that instead of going to the front lines, he and Prince are being sent to a military dog training base. One evening, Nina comes home and finds her fiancé, Vov, and their neighbor, Tatiana, in a delicate situation. Misunderstanding what she sees, she argues with him. She had been suspicious of their relationship, and seeing them together is too much for her. Angry, she packs her things and leaves the house, while Vyov tries hard to soothe her. Later, he goes to the hospital to find her. A nurse tells him that Nina has voluntarily moved to the front lines of the battlefield. To his shock, he also finds out that she is pregnant, so he knows he must save her. The next day, the dogs at the military base, including Prince, undergo tough training. They are made to feel very hungry before being fed under tanks. General Sauf, who runs the base, declares that the plan is to train the dogs to take out enemy tanks, especially the German ones. Many dog owners are upset by this plan because it means sending their dogs on a suicide mission. The general threatens that if the owners don't agree to send their dogs for army duty, they might be drafted to carry out the mission themselves. The general also stresses the importance of getting the dogs used to the noise of the engines. VOV argues that the dogs can't function well with such loud sounds because of their instinct to protect themselves, but he is proven wrong when the general tosses 2 small puppies under a tank. The mother dog, seeing her puppies in danger, instinctively breaks free and runs after them. Despite the loud noise of the tank, she goes underneath it. This shows the general was right, that the dogs can be trained for tasks too dangerous for humans. Later, the general's assistant, Expedia, tells the dog owners that at first, people were assigned to destroy tanks by carrying bombs. But it soon became clear that people, being slower than dogs, often got shot before they could reach the tanks. Realizing this weakness, the army started special training programs for dogs. The goal was to equip them with bombs attached to their bodies to effectively target enemy tanks. Once the dogs were no longer afraid of tanks, the captain began strapping bombs to them. This tactic made sure that when the dogs got under the tanks, the bombs would go off when they felt pressure, destroying the enemy tanks and stopping their soldiers. He also shares that they had tried training some dogs to place bombs under enemy tanks and come back. However, this plan failed because the dogs became confused and scattered. They didn't respond to the whistles and dropped the bombs randomly. Thus, they were left with no choice but to use the dogs for a suicide mission. The assistant also explains that there's an order to prepare all the dogs to become tank destroyers. Following this, the dogs are constantly exposed to the loud noises of tank engines, both day and night, to get them used to the sound. Owners are even required to run under tanks to help with the dogs' training, aiming to ready them to carry bombs under the tanks. When VOV hears about the plan, he is devastated. Prince had saved his life, and the thought of his beloved dog going on a suicide mission is too much for him to handle. Unable to face losing his companion, he decides to escape with Prince. However, their attempt to flee is stopped when their general catches them that night. The general gives a harsh warning, threatening severe consequences if VOV betrays the army. After this failed escape, Volkov tries another approach. He presents his injury certificate and applies for retirement, not just for himself, but also for Prince. He even offers to go to war in place of his dog. Volkov's actions are fueled by his deep love for his pet, and he is ready to sacrifice his own life to protect him. But the general confronts him, accusing him of betrayal for putting a dog above his country. Heartbroken, VOV goes back to his room, feeling overwhelmed with sadness and anger. In a burst of frustration, he starts smashing things with his crutch. Hearing the noise, his neighbor Tatiana hurries to his room to offer her support. She reminds him of the severe challenges their country is facing and stresses that everyone is fighting bravely to defend it. Tatiana tells him that Prince is not just a pet, but a brave soldier committed to protecting their homeland. She also points out the serious consequences for both VOV and Prince if their country were defeated. Moved by Tatiana's words, Volkov thinks again about his plan to leave the army. He decides to stay and fight with his fellow soldiers, realizing the seriousness of the situation and the importance of defending their country. The next day during training, Vyav grabs dog food from the general's hand and runs towards a tank. Seeing his master's actions, Prince follows quickly and goes under the tank. But Prince isn't motivated by hunger. He's driven by his commitment to protect his master's life. Seeing Prince's loyalty, the general decides to send him and other trained military dogs to the battlefield. On the following day at the battlefield, Vav and the rest of the Red Army get ready as they confront a group of German soldiers and 4 intimidating tanks. At that moment, the general gets orders to fit the dogs with bombs to stop the German tanks' progress. The strategy works at first, but then a problem occurs when a dog mistakenly runs under a Soviet tank. It turns out the trainers hadn't taught the dogs to tell the difference between Soviet and German tanks. This significant mistake took some time for the general to recognize. The explosion destroys the Soviet tank, infuriating the general, who quickly replaces the dogs with human trainers. After calming the situation, the remaining dogs are set free. One owner, with tears streaming down his face, sends his dog sprinting towards a German tank with incredible force. The dog crashes into the tank, completely destroying it, but tragically dies in the process. While the general celebrates the destruction of the tank, the dog's trainer is overwhelmed with sorrow. He clenches his fists, unable to watch his beloved pet meet such an end. As the conflict continues, more military dogs are sent into battle on the general's orders. Soon, they successfully take down a second German tank. Eager to destroy a third tank, the general prepares to send another dog. However, the third owner can't stand to lose his cherished dog this way. Defying the general's orders, he removes the bomb from his dog and charges towards the tank himself. Despite his determination, humans can't run as fast as dogs, and as he nears the tank, the owner is shot by German soldiers. Watching this heartbreak unfold, the general tries to rescue the owner, but gets hurt himself. The wounded owner fights valiantly, crawling under the tank to blow it up and sacrifice himself. But even after his courageous act, the last tank swiftly moves closer. Meanwhile, the Red Army's camp is bombarded from all sides, with explosions erupting everywhere. In the turmoil, Nina, who is also fighting on the front lines, is severely injured. Volkov sees her and summons his bravery to rescue her. He tries to tackle the German attackers, but ends up getting wounded in the battle. At this critical moment, Prince charges through the gunfire and slams into a German tank. With this selfless act, the loyal dog sacrifices himself, destroying the last tank and saving Volkov, Nina, and everyone in the Soviet camp. Eventually, Volkov retires with high honors, celebrating Prince's heroic deeds. The movie then returns to the present, where an elderly man, Vov's son, is recounting his father's story to an audience. Someone inquires about his parents. We learn that his mother, Nina, passed away shortly after giving birth, while his father, Volkov, disappeared in 1945. Tatiana, the one who found him in the orphanage, raised him as her own son. They moved to Mongolia and enjoyed a peaceful life. It was Tatiana who shared with the old man the tales of his father's and his pet's courageous acts during the war. After Tatiana's death, he returned to Russia, to the land where his parents had made great sacrifices for the country's welfare. So that was all for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. If so, like, subscribe, and share this video with a friend. See you in the next one.